why don't we go ahead and get started? So we've got some paper sign-up sheets kind of circulating around just to let us know that you're here, but then also please do scan our QR code, and I'll be sending a little bit of a follow-up tomorrow or Friday with some application info for everyone that was here. Okay, so we have our full panel here, so let's get started. My name is Dr. Lucy Ballard. I'm a program coordinator with the Hart Leadership Program. We are located in the Stanford School. We're actually just downstairs, got a couple of offices. My primary role is coordinating, of course, the Laidlaw Scholars Research and Leadership Program, but also another program called Service Opportunities in Leadership, or SOL. I am about over a year into my Duke journey here as program coordinator. I came to Duke from Harvard University, where I was completing my PhD in religious studies, and I did dissertation work to complete that degree in the city of Detroit, working with Muslim civic organizations and community organizers who were revitalizing neighborhoods there. So that's kind of how I wound up here at the Hart Leadership Program, where our core work is engaging students in leadership in public life and kind of preparing and equipping students to make meaningful change in whatever kind of mode is important to you. So over the next little bit less than an hour, I'm going to talk through the components of the Laidlaw Scholars Program, give you a sense of the program, and then throughout we're going to hear from each of our student panelists talking about each of those components so that you can hear a little bit about the student experience. And then towards the end, we'll open it up to some Q&A with me and then also our students. For folks just coming in, we have less chairs than usual in this room, so just snag a chair out of the room in the back, and don't worry about clattering. All good. Okay, so to quickly introduce our panelists here, and they'll have a chance to introduce themselves a little bit later. We have Kate Westlake, giveaway, Kate Westlake, who is a current Laidlaw Scholar in the 2025 cohort. She is a sophomore and majoring in public policy. We have Chloe Joy Chang, who is also in the current cohort of Laidlaw Scholars and a junior majoring in biomedical engineering. And then we also have Lady Salcedo-Urania, who is a Laidlaw Scholar in the current cohort as well, and a sophomore majoring in economics. So you can already see folks with a lot of different interests become Laidlaw Scholars. Great. Okay, so where are we heading? I'm going to talk about the program, go through the components. I'm going to flag some of the info about how you can apply and learn more, and we're going to turn to Q&A. Oh my gosh, I'm so weird. So raise your hand if you have encountered the Hart Leadership Program before tonight. Who encountered the Hart Leadership Program at an orientation event? Okay, a lot of folks. Okay, so for folks who are a little bit less familiar, the Hart Leadership Program, as I said, is located in the School of Public Policy, and we're all about the work of equipping students to practice the art of leadership in public life. And we do that work in a couple of different ways. So we offer academic courses. Here at the Stanford School, we have about 15 affiliated faculty members in public policy who teach courses for students of any major. So a lot of cool stuff there to check out any semester that you're here on campus. But the real core of our work with undergraduate students are our 5 experiential learning programs, one of which is the Laidlaw Scholars Program. And it's actually the newest program in our portfolio. So what is the Laidlaw Scholars Program? Here you can see a lot of great photos of our students engaging in some of their summer work from the research summer experience. And you also will get a chance to hear from some of the students that are spotlighted in these photos. So the Laidlaw Scholars Program is a 24-month leadership development sequence that is really designed to equip students with the skills, the knowledge, the capacities, the experience to drive meaningful change in your communities and beyond. So working on issues that are really important to you and deeply impactful in the communities from which you come and communities around the world. And so there are kind of 3 key components to the Laidlaw Scholars experience. So the first is a community-engaged research program. So you'll have the opportunity to engage in really meaningful collaborative projects that are deeply rooted in communities. It's a leadership development program, so you're going to think really deeply about theories and frameworks of leadership while also engaging in kind of practical experiences that help you to build, again, the kind of knowledge and capacities required to function as an ethical leader in whatever field you go into. And then the third piece is this kind of immersion component, and we'll get into this a little bit more, but the 2 summer experiences are designed to provide you a really immersive experience working in communities alongside the folks who are most impacted by the issues that you're studying here at Duke and the issues that you're engaging in your summer projects. Just to flag, we do not have enough chairs tonight, unfortunately, but there are a couple of extra chairs and some side rooms over here, so if you're not trying to stand the whole time, please feel free to grab a chair. You won't be interrupting. Or sit on the floor. That's also great. Okay, so that is the kind of overview of the Laidlaw Scholars Program. But I also want to flag that the Laidlaw Scholars Program actually exists at 20 other universities all around the world. So by joining the Laidlaw Scholars Program here at Duke, you're actually becoming part of a global community of like-minded scholars. And so you can see a lot of names, kind of Ivy League, Ivy Plus. Some of the newest members of this network are NYU Abu Dhabi, as well as Harvard and MIT. So it's kind of a network that is always growing. And to my understanding, Duke is the only university here that is in the American South. So that's pretty cool. So what is the Laidlaw Scholars Program in terms of the actual kind of components and timeline? So we're going to talk through each of these components, and we're going to hear a little bit from our students about what has been meaningful or formative about each of these components. Flagging, of course, that this is a pretty new program to do, so we only have had 1 cohort thus far. And so our Laidlaw Scholar cohort from 2025 is actually only halfway through the program. So they're going to share experiences about the Gateway course and the research experience and some of their early colloquium experience, but we don't yet have some firsthand student experience for the leadership and practice experience. So flagging that. But as you can see, the program will start in spring 2026. So in January, those who are admitted to the cohort will take part in a Gateway course. Basically a preparation for your first summer experience, which is the community engaged research experience. Afterwards, you come back to campus. So if you're a first year student now, this will be your sophomore year. If you're a sophomore, it'll be your junior year. You'll come back to campus, take part in a colloquium, really designed to engage you in further leadership development conversations and also assist you in building out your second summer community engaged leadership experience, which is really the core and kind of culmination of the program is the leadership in practice summer, so the second summer experience. And then also, again, just to note, a really important feature of this program is that Global Scholars Network. So if you're looking to connect with like-minded folks, not just at Duke, but around the world, this could be the program for you. Okay, Gateway course. So, coming onto campus January 2026, and the course that you'll take with your other Laidlaw Scholars in the 2026 cohort is called Community Engaged Research Leadership for Social Change. And the course is taught by Dr. Hee Huynh, who is an assistant professor in global health and public policy. And the course is really, in part, trying to make an argument for this concept of research leadership. So engaging you in some pretty deep thinking about the connections between research and leadership. How do we ask good questions? How do we engage ethically in community? What is community development? So really an opportunity to provide the bedrock for the rest of the program and to prepare you for the practical experience of community engaged research. So this will include some reading and thinking about theories and frameworks of leadership and community development. Reflective exercises thinking about your values and your motivations. Why are you here at Duke? Who do you want to be in community with others? And then again, a sort of third component, which is a little bit more practical preparation for that community engaged research experience. We do not assume that all of our Laidlaw Scholars in the incoming cohort are seasoned researchers. I might not be a seasoned researcher after 10 years. Like, we're all kind of in progress, and so don't feel like if you haven't spent 3 years in a lab that you're not prepared for this program. The program will prepare you for the research that you will engage with for that first summer experience. So I'm going to turn now, as I rapid fire transition, let's hear a little bit from our current students about the Gateway course. So maybe can each of you share a couple of sentences about what was most meaningful, maybe something unexpected that you learned from the Gateway course.
Sorry. Yeah, so I would say The gateway course is very collaborative in nature. Like Dr. He will teach you frameworks and will sort of guide you into what community engaged research leadership could look like. But it's ultimately up to the student to think about how those things could apply to their specific fields. And as we see just by this panel, a lot of us in the Laidlaw cohort have different interests. So that collaborative nature and being challenged not just by your cohort, but also by Dr. He and the researchers that he invites to speak to the class was very, very insightful. And in the end, I feel like it not only brought me closer to my cohort, but also prepared me for the research summer, which was very helpful.
Yeah, I will say that like the class covered a lot of things, and I think like going in, I was a little nervous to see what that would look like, but I do think that it has been like the most time I've had in any Duke course to like digest things and think through things and think about like what they mean for you and like how you're showing up in spaces. And so I think it was surprising that like as we were learning about all of these concepts, they kind of became more similar than they did different. And then I did feel very prepared going into the summer because I had time to think through both on my own and then with the cohort as well, like what these ideas meant, what I wanted to take away from the frameworks. And I do think that in a school where things move pretty quickly, the ability to have space was, I don't know, it was something I was very grateful for. So.
I think like going into the Laidlaw program, like you know that you're going to go somewhere for the summer and you know that you're going to go into research. But I think that's oftentimes really scary because a lot of us went abroad and a lot of us were like outside of Duke. And so this course I think was just great because it really prepped us all in like the community engaged research aspect. Like I do a lot of research on campus because I'm in Pratt. But I think it's like very, very different because it just shows us where our emphasis is. And it like really, I think, grounds us in like the Hart leadership values that you're trying to get out of the Laidlaw program. So it was just good to like, it was a very good intro and transition from like what research might look like to the average Duke student versus as a Laidlaw scholar, like part of the Hart leadership.
Okay, so each of our panelists has alluded a little bit to the first summer experience, which is a immersive experience in community engaged research. And so I'll talk through some of the kind of requirements for that summer, but with the caveat that I work really closely with each Laidlaw scholar to kind of discern what that project will be for you. So the general criteria for the research summer experience is that it should be at least 6 weeks in duration. So yes, that means that some other activities might be able to kind of plug into your summer. That project should be led by a faculty member. It should be team-based, so collaborative in nature, and community engaged. And we're really thinking about community engagement in a pretty capacious way. So everything from projects that are deeply rooted in the very specific methodology of community engaged research, which is sort of involving communities in every step of the research process, from the development of questions and protocols all the way to discerning what to do with outcomes and how to make that work public. So projects that are deeply rooted in that methodology, all the way to projects that are engaged in a meaningful public question that bring you into community with others in a sort of a rich way. So again, that's kind of a conversation I have individually with each scholar. But community engaged is a really key feature of that research summer experience that we want to invite our Duke scholars into. Now, an important piece to clarify during this info session is that acceptance to the Laidlaw Scholars Program does not mean automatic acceptance to a research project. You will have to do the groundwork, really, starting in December and coming into the spring semester to identify a project that is compelling to you. It might require an additional application, and so it's really up to you to decide kind of what you can take on and how to think really intentionally about that summer research project. And so what are some of those options? This will make more sense once I explain some of the options. So this past summer, we were able to offer a real range of predefined research projects for our Laidlaw scholars. So this past summer, we were able to offer 3 projects that were led by Hart Leadership Program affiliated faculty members that were only for Laidlaw scholars. So we had a group that went to Brussels in the UK working on tech policy and artificial intelligence. We had a group, Kate was part of this team, that went to Cape Town and was working in kind of human rights law, constitutional law, issues around housing, sort of housing access and youth unemployment. And then we also had a team that traveled to Berlin with Professor Chris Sims, who is the director of the Center for Documentary Studies. And they were working on a documentary photography project about kind of urban design and climate change in Berlin. So we cannot yet confirm that those projects will run again. We're still in conversation with those faculty members, but we anticipate offering 2 to 3 faculty-led projects of this kind of caliber. In addition, as I said, the Laidlaw Scholars Program has all of these partner institutions around the world. And so right now we have research partnerships with the University of Leeds and the University of St. Andrews. And so we anticipate that there will be a number of community-engaged projects in which you might have the opportunity to travel abroad to participate in research teams that might include some Duke scholars, but also some Laidlaw scholars at other institutions. 2 other options here. Duke Engage, great opportunities. Many of you have probably been exposed to Duke Engage via orientation. They're great programs. And so Duke Engage programs that involve a significant research component will be considered, as well as PLUS programs. Who has heard of the PLUS programs? Yeah. Really trying to drum up some enthusiasm for these typically Durham-based programs that are rooted in particular Duke departments typically. So Doc Plus. Lady participated in the Doc Plus project. Doc Plus, Data Plus, Code Plus, History Plus, Applied Ethics Plus, fabulous projects, many of which are community engaged and will fit with the Laidlaw Scholars criteria. And then the last option. So let's say literally none of these are of interest. You're like, no, like I have a very particular set of interests. Well, you have the option to be in pretty close conversation with me. Do your own research. There might be some opportunities at other universities. You might have your own faculty connections right now and want to deepen those relationships and work on a team-based project with folks here at Duke. The kind of possibilities are a bit endless. So this past summer we had a student who plugged into a project at the university, or New Mexico State University, working on kind of immigration reform. And we also had a student who plugged in with the economics department and did a really meaningful project that fit with her interests. So I'll say overall that those who will be most successful, I think, in the Laidlaw Scholars Program are those who you have a particular sense of direction and a set of interests, but you're not so deeply married to a very defined and narrow version of those interests that you're unwilling to maybe step a little bit outside of your comfort zone, try a project that maybe you didn't think you would, something that's a little bit outside of your expectation. So that sounds like a kind of level of risk and uncertainty that you can take on. The Laidlaw Scholars Program might be right for you. And from what we've heard from Laidlaw scholars, even those projects that were a little bit kind of outside of their comfort zone have brought really meaningful leadership and intellectual learning. So with that, I'll turn to our fabulous panel and have each of you share a little bit about, like, what did you do this summer and what was something really meaningful about that experience that you had. And maybe we'll start opposite. We'll start with Chloe.
I did like the second option. I went to the University of Leeds, and I was working in a chemical engineering lab. So it was like what Dr. Ballard did, quite out of my comfort zone. So I'm BME pre-med, and so a lot of my research here is like with cells or like neurobiology, and that was kind of the direction I was hoping to go this summer. And then after looking at my options, I did realize that the chemical engineering lab and project sounded really interesting. That's why I ended up choosing that one, and that was completely not what I was expecting when I first went into Laidlaw. I went to Leeds for 6 weeks, and one of the weeks I spent in Tanzania because this was a joint project between the University of Leeds and the Nelson Mandela African Institute of Science and Technology. And so I was part of a lab in NMIST and Leeds, and I was the only Duke student there, but there were some other Laidlaw students from the University of Leeds and Hong Kong University over there. It was like a very small lab, very hands-on, and I spent a lot of time working on both like technical and non-technical aspects of the engineering project. And we were essentially trying to develop ion filtration systems to remove fluoride contamination in Tanzanian groundwater, especially in hospitals, because it was creating a big bone and dental fluorosis issue, which is pretty, it's bad if you look into it. So essentially we were removing fluoride ions, and we're trying to do it in a sustainable way so that it would be accessible for the community, easily installed in various public spaces in Tanzania, but also wouldn't cost too much or create too much social uproar, because some of the other options that we had were using bone char, animal bones, to remove the fluoride, but that also created some religious and social issues. And so there were a lot of aspects that we were having conversations with, and also spending a lot of time in the lab to actually develop the filter. And I think I enjoyed it a lot more than I had initially thought I would. And so, yeah.
Yeah, and then I did one of the HLP affiliated faculty programs. I went to Cape Town with, I don't know if you know, but Professor Catherine Adney, who teaches more like master's level in the policy school and is a human rights lawyer as well outside of it. And so a lot of what we did was human rights law work as well as constitutional law. So we did 2 projects when we were there. One of them was, I guess we're in the picture up there, but that was with youth capital, which is youth unemployment, kind of a group or NGO, and they're working at creative solutions for the youth unemployment crisis in South Africa, which is quite extensive. And then at that same time, we were also doing a more memo-based, sit-down policy research on Airbnb regulation with a legal center focused on the South African Constitution. And so with the Youth Unemployment Project, what we did was we conducted interviews and conversations with people across Cape Town, and it was with different groups. It was business leaders and politicians and religious people as well, and I spoke to a lot of people that I never thought I was going to be able to. One of our conversations was with the Archbishop of Cape Town and pretty high political leaders as well, and so hearing how people were involved in that community and the work that they're doing, and how are they fighting for a different South African future, I think kind of re-energized me and has put into context a lot of the things that I feel in the United States right now, and what I want to do about it, and how I see that going forward. So I think being able to work with ADME and live with ADME for 6 weeks really closely was an experience I never thought I would have. And yeah, I think it was a very good project, all in all.
So I did Doc Plus. Doc Plus is through the Center for Documentary Studies. They'll essentially pair each one of their groups with one community partner to work on a documentary-based project. My particular project was in collaboration with DHIC. It's an affordable housing developer in the Triangle area. They recently opened their development in East Durham. It's called Hardy Street, and they wanted us to cover the development of Hardy Street and the community that they are building at Hardy Street now. We spent roughly 2 weeks doing background research, 2 weeks in production, and 2 weeks in post. I'd say my experience was similar to Chloe Joy's in the sense that I wasn't expecting to go into anything documentary related when I first applied to the Laidlaw Scholars Program. As you guys heard before, I'm an econ major, so that's kind of what I was expecting to do during the summer. But I found that my experience with the Center for Documentary Studies and with DHIC, even though it wasn't directly related, it still gave me profound insights. We were able to talk to some of the managers of the projects, and they gave us a ton of information of the economics that goes into affordable housing and the types of tax credits that they look for when they're funding affordable housing. They went over that entire process. And I also got valuable insights in how to do certain things. For post, we interviewed 7 people in 2 weeks, and that was crazy. But it gave me valuable insights on how to do that. I learned how to work a camera. I learned how to do fast, meaningful background research and apply it into something that's synthesized and something that shares a message. So yeah, that was sort of my experience.
Great, thank you. And feel free to take notes for questions to ask towards the end. So moving right along. So the research experience, our 3 scholars here and the rest of their cohort have just returned from their research summer experience to campus and are now participating in the Laidlaw Colloquium. So this colloquium, the title here is really just the name for all of the activities that you'll take part in during that academic year of 2026 to 2027. And the full series is designed, well, really to do 3 things. It's designed to get the cohort together, build a meaningful community of practice here on campus. It's designed to really provide, again, kind of a continuous and sustained conversation about ethical leadership practice, putting Laidlaw scholars into conversation with faculty on campus, guest speakers, with one another about ethical community development, about how you are developing yourself as a student and a researcher and a community leader here on campus. So you can think of it as kind of monthly sessions designed to engage you in ongoing personal and leadership development. And then the third piece of the Laidlaw Colloquium is really some very practical preparation for the Leadership in Practice summer. And I'll talk a little bit more about the expectations for that second summer. As with all things, we have options. But the Laidlaw Colloquium is really designed with a series of assignments, scaffolded assignments that help you to progressively build towards your Leadership in Practice summer experience, which in short looks like a project or an internship in partnership with a community organization. So in addition, during the Laidlaw Colloquium, a piece that connects you with the global Laidlaw network is that every second year Laidlaw scholar earns this certificate in ethical leadership through the Oxford Character Project. This is basically like an online synchronous virtual series from about November through May. And another kind of way to build your leadership toolkit, other frameworks and theories for thinking about leadership development. There we go. Okay, so I've referenced this several times, so let's get into it. So the Leadership in Practice experience is an 8-week immersive, again, kind of leadership project or leadership internship where you're really getting the chance to take initiative and collaborate with community partners, local folks who are doing meaningful work towards social change. It's an opportunity to grow your own leadership skills, put them into practice, see how you need to adapt and adjust to kind of everyday context. It's also a chance to learn alongside community-minded leaders who are kind of in the field and doing meaningful work. And in addition, during the leadership practice experience, you're kind of doing the project, but you also are completing reflective assignments basically for the Hart Leadership Program, where you're reflecting really deeply on the experience that you're having in the field and beginning to make some meaning from that learning. Like, what surprised you? Was there a moment that sort of set you off kilter? Things that are helping you to, again, think really deeply about your leadership practice, your values, your motivations, and where you're heading kind of in your life. So a couple of pieces about the Leadership in Practice experience. So again, you've got a partner with the community organization, nonprofits only. There will be some additional kind of guidance around that ethical community engagement piece. You should be addressing some really pressing social challenges, something that's meaningful to you, an issue or question that you hope to explore more deeply. Maybe it's something that you already have experience with. Or it's an issue or a question that you hope to explore for the first time, but to do so kind of guided by the ethical frameworks of the program. And like I mentioned, a real opportunity to work alongside not only the communities that are most impacted by the issues that you're engaging with, but also to learn alongside local practitioners and kind of glean leadership lessons from that collaboration and that interaction. So as I mentioned, options. So 2 big options for the Leadership in Practice experience. The first is rooted in the larger Laidlaw Foundation, sort of Laidlaw scholars community, the global community. So the Laidlaw Foundation is a UK-based philanthropy that actually funds all of these programs, and the foundation has their own like 5 or 6 partner organizations that every year those organizations host a group of Laidlaw scholars from around the world to engage in really meaningful work. And so you can take a look at some of those existing partnerships online. But something to flag is that these are typically international experiences, and in this particular option, you get the opportunity to work with other Laidlaw scholars. So it's kind of a group project. You'll have your own particular piece of the project, but you're there with other Laidlaw scholars. So if you're thinking like, I'm not ready to go do my own thing, do this kind of independent project on my own, this could be a good option. And we would be in close conversation about what is the right fit for you. The other option is to now actually design your own kind of independent project or internship with a community partner of your choosing. Maybe you've done some really meaningful work in high school or in your early college career with an organization right here in Durham or somewhere else, wherever is home for you. Maybe you want to deepen that relationship with an organization, bringing all of the skills and knowledge that you've gained in your college career so far back into community with that organization. Maybe you're interested in exploring a different issue or a new piece of knowledge, and so you reach out to new kinds of organizations. Really, there's a lot of opportunity here, but these are going to be individual projects, or could actually be in small teams with Laidlaw scholars. We're kind of keeping it like pretty broad, but it's a real, again, opportunity to engage in that like design process from start to finish, and really take a lot of initiative to build a project and internship in conversation and collaboration with community partners that are on the ground doing the work and deeply accountable to the communities that they work in. So, I know I'm going a little bit fast. We've got about 20 minutes to go. So I want to flag one more time the Global Scholars Network. So throughout your time in the Laidlaw Scholars Program and after, you have ideally built connections to peers all around the world. You've engaged with the digital Laidlaw Scholars Network platform, which is kind of like a LinkedIn only for Laidlaw scholars. You've posted about your research summers and your leadership and practice summer. You've built really meaningful connections. You've also had an opportunity to share your work and connect further in person at the annual conference. Every year, Laidlaw scholars returning from their research summer experience get the opportunity to travel to an annual conference at one of the Laidlaw Scholars partner institutions here in the U.S. There's also a simultaneous conference that happens in the UK, but our group will typically be going to the U.S. conference. So this year in November, our Laidlaw scholars are headed to Brown University in Rhode Island to share their research publicly. And then, you know, I mean, you're all passionate people. You've arrived here at Duke because you have a lot of I don't know, you're excited to learn and you're ready for like what's next. And so the Laidlaw Scholars Program can be a real accelerant to the ways that you hope to grow and learn further, connecting you with people who are really passionate about making a difference in the world, in sort of whatever are the places that they're from. Okay, so a couple more slides here. So I just wanted to highlight, like, we have this Duke Laidlaw Scholars Program, and then there's all these other Laidlaw Scholars programs in the world. But there are a couple of features about our programs that are kind of unique. So the first is that in our Laidlaw Scholars Program here, you engage in academic coursework, a credit-bearing course that will appear on your transcript. We get you for a lot of time, meeting multiple times a week for the full spring semester. We are actually the only Laidlaw Scholars Program in the world that has a credit-bearing course in this way. And that's in part because for the Hart Leadership Program, we really believe very deeply that leadership practice requires significant and rigorous academic study. And so we want to put you into those contexts to really take your leadership practice very seriously and engage with other thinkers around leadership development. The second is community engagement. The community engaged research experience is unique to our program as well. So there's a real reason for our emphasis on that for your research summer experience. Because we want you to have the opportunity to work really closely in community, again, with those who are most impacted by the issues that are under study. And then the third piece is reflective practice. So every single student in a Hart Leadership Program experiential learning opportunity engages in reflective practice. And one of the ways that they do that is through letters home. So during the Leadership and Practice Summer, as I mentioned, that is the assignment. So you engage with the full Hart Leadership Program community as you're writing your reflective letters about your experience in community. And so we're going to ask some probing questions throughout the program. We're going to ask you to think really deeply. and you might leave this program with more questions, and ideally you leave this program with more questions than have been answered, but those questions are better refined, and you're better prepared to adapt and address those questions going forward. So, with my spiel now complete, this is how you can apply to our program. So it's an online form. I've got it linked there with the QR code, but you can also find all of this on our website. We're asking for a couple of things in this application so that we can get to know you. We're asking for a one-page resume. We'd like to see your unofficial transcripts. If you're a first-year student, you don't have grades yet, but we would like you to share your fall course schedule with us. And then if you're invited to the interview round, before you can be invited into the cohort, we'll ask you to share your midterm grades, which will come out about mid-October. So that's for first-year students. And then the real meat of the application is our 4 short essay questions. Has anyone had a chance to pop into the application and take a look? I see some nods. Okay, so they're juicy questions. We're asking some big questions. And you have a short amount of space to basically tell us who you are. Why are you interested in this program? Why are you here at Duke? What do you care about? Where do you come from? Sort of all of these questions are designed to help us get to know you and what drives you. Okay, so application will close next Wednesday. You got plenty of time to put together some really great responses. And so they'll close on October 1st at midnight. You'll get interview invitations a couple weeks after that. We'll have interviews for a couple of weeks. Those interviews will be with myself or the Hart Leadership Program Director and one other faculty member. So it'll sort of be you'll be interviewed by 2 people. And then by about early November, we'll be sending out notification of acceptance. So that's the rough timeline as you're kind of discerning if you'd like to apply. Okay. So I'm going to leave this slide up here. A lot of ways to learn more. If you came in a little late, do feel free to scan this QR code. And there's a lot of ways to continue connecting and learning more about this program. Visit our website, head over to @HartLeadership on Instagram. We are blasting things on Instagram all the time. And you can be in touch with me. I have office hours, and we'll have office hours all the way through the end of the application period. So it's not too late. You don't look bad if you come in and want to talk about this program. You look great. So those are some ways to connect. Okay. I will now ask our panelists, before we open for Q&A, to share a couple of sentences about, in terms of the program overall, what has been most meaningful about the Laidlaw Scholars experience. Okay. And another way to frame that would be, how is Laidlaw shaping your Duke experience, or even your sense of yourself as a leader? And Kate's looking at me, so Kate can go first.
Okay. I mean, obviously I haven't gotten all the way through yet, but I do think that Laidlaw is a very unique space on campus, and I also think the values it's driven by, you don't really find a lot of places. And I think it's also, I think things can get very separated in terms of you interact with people who you have the same major in, or you kind of see people that have your classes, and I think that sitting in the class at the end of last year and just hearing what all of these different people's perspectives and the different things that they're studying and kind of bringing that all together has been, I don't know, I think it's been very rewarding, and it's been something that I don't think I encounter a lot on campus, and I think the difference in perspectives and experiences and what people want to do, and kind of seeing, oh, here's how we're approaching things differently, and here's where we're on the same page, has been very cool. So, yeah.
I think it's very encouraging to see the cohort that we're really lucky to have. I think there's a really diverse amount of backgrounds and majors in there, and I think everyone has a unified passion for research, but it's not research that you really think of when you think research. I think a lot of times when Duke students are oh, I do research, I'm part of a lab, it's almost a very structured environment where you're doing certain procedures or protocols, and that's really rewarding as well. I do that as well. But I think there's just this type of self-driven exploration that Laidlaw really allows you to do and equips you with, equips you with all the resources that you need. And so you really are able to like build a passion about like this community-based like question or research problem that you want to like tackle over your time as a Laidlaw scholar. And so it feels like everything is culminating to like this one thing that you'll end up like really getting involved in during your second summer. And so I think that it's just really, I think I had a lot of like things that I wanted to study and like look into, and so Laidlaw really guided me to be able to do that in a more structured and organized way. And yeah, like just being able to talk to all these people has been really great for me.
Yeah, I guess for me it would be, I guess the network that you build throughout your Laidlaw experience, not just with your cohort, but also with the faculty that you connect with for your summer experiences and with any community partners. I think that is super important, especially when you're trying to challenge your own assumptions, which is also like a core part of being an ethical leader, challenging your own assumptions and continuing to grow. And I think having that expanded network really helps with that.
All right, I think with that, we will now turn it to Q&A. Thank you so much, everyone, for sitting through the info session portion, and now we'll turn it to Q&A. I saw a hand right here.
Yeah, what's the size of the cohort, and like, do the people in the program now really interact with people coming next year, or is it relatively separate?
That's a really good question. So this past year's cohort was 25, and we're shooting for similar numbers this year. And I think the honest answer to your questions, I think we're going to experiment with how to connect our two cohorts. We have real interest. So the current cohort in early September went on a weekend retreat as like a core feature of the start of the Laidlaw Colloquium. And so we've had some conversation about, well, what would it look like for that retreat actually to involve both cohorts? And so I think we're in a place of kind of discerning how and when to connect the full community. I mean, we want there to be a very robust Duke Laidlaw Scholars community. So I think it's a matter of actually co-creation with our existing scholars and the original cohort, and then also with the folks who come in. So it's sort of both on the administrative side, what kind of programming we can directively offer, and then also what do the students in the program crave, and what can we create together. So I think the short answer is we're excited to connect our two cohorts. I'm going to call over here first. Can you say your name and your class year?
My name is Saida. I am class of 2028. I had a question for the panelists. How big of a time commitment has Laidlaw been to your like regular schedules, I guess, and how has it enhanced your kind of the stuff that you learned in class?
I don't think, I mean, obviously, like, taking a class is okay, it's a class, so you go, but also it's, like, during your day, so it didn't really feel like it was taking up time in a way, and I think that, like, now as we go, and obviously this summer it was, like, 6 weeks, I was just doing Laidlaw work. I think this year it looks like it's going to be more, there's a thing here, like, an occasional, I think, like, once a month, maybe 2 times a month, like, to make sure you're coming back together, and then obviously the conference in November will be a weekend, but I think it's like, it doesn't feel like a lot, but as you like noted, it does feel like it enhances what I'm doing, and I'm excited to see this year what it's like when it's, okay, here are like everything else I'm doing on campus, but then everyone comes together again, and we like share dinner, and we check in, and we're like, are we committing to the things that we told ourselves we were going to do, and like, are you on track with this? So I'm excited to see like, how that works out and how that plays into like the other places I show up on campus. But it's definitely, I don't think it's like an egregious time commitment or anything. Yeah.
And like going off of that, like I'm kind of continuing with the summer project that I did, so I'm working remotely and like helping write the paper that we're trying to publish and like trying to do the non-technical aspects of the research, and so there's that extra time commitment, but it's like how much you make of it. It's like if you want to take on and continue things like from the summer, or like talk to Hart leadership people like, throughout the semester, you can. But if not, like you can just do your requirements, and that's perfectly fine. Because most of the scholars are really busy outside of Laidlaw already.
I would also add, I was actually talking to Dr. Bradley about this, but at least for me, I feel like some of my coursework at Duke can be very abstract sometimes. So having that additional experience through Laidlaw really helped me make that real world connection, and I really appreciated that.
And the only thing that I would add, this is really helpful to hear the group's experience of the Laidlaw Colloquium so far, because we're only a month into the semester. But just to say that, like, the Laidlaw Colloquium, monthly kind of meetings, like a dinner session or a kind of afternoon session. But then also, I mentioned that sort of scaffolded structure of assignments through the full year. So there are deadlines. There are kind of expectations of professionalism, and I would really encourage folks, my approach this year is, if you want to commit to the program, commit to the program, because you really will get in, or get out of the program what you put in. So there are expectations. You could sort of think of it as like a quarter course, like there's a Canvas site. So pair those two things together as you are discerning if this is the right commitment for you. Maybe we'll go over here and move. Yeah.
Right. I'm Harrison, class of 2028. So when you guys were talking about what made this program super meaningful to you, you mentioned this unique set of values. My question was, which of these unique values do you think that you developed the most so far?
I think a lot of what I've developed is like intentionality and being able to think through things in the course, and then also like as you noted, it's about a lot of like questions and how are you moving forward, but also like what's driving that, and so like the reflection and how that plays into, am I being intentional here, and like what am I actually trying to accomplish, and like why is that, I think I have seen show up a lot more, and that was developed a lot in the summer, is like how am I asking questions of myself, and how am I taking the time to reflect and like be intentional about what I'm doing and how I'm showing up.
Kind of going off of that, like one thing we were talking about in Dr. He's class was like how like you come to Duke and like everyone's so like desperate to like do anything that like we sign up for like a bunch of crap that we're not actually passionate about, and then like after you get the position, you're like midway through the semester and like you sign up for like all these things, and then you like low-key hate half of what you're doing, but you're just doing it because like you have this like leadership position that looks good on LinkedIn. Like just things that like that. It was, we were talking about like how do you like do things very intentionally, like whether that's inside of Laidlaw or outside. Like how are you like genuinely pouring in? You're also that you're not actually like bringing the rest of the team down by like being like late to your meetings or like not showing up and like constantly stimping things. Like how do you like do everything so that you can pour in a lot and also get out a lot? And so I think that's one thing that I started thinking about a bit more with like when I sign up for different events or like different positions, and like when I'm continuing through Laidlaw, like what I'm trying to do in my leadership and practice summer. I think I'm trying to really think about like what can I get the most out of, and what can I contribute the most to.
For me, I would say it's mostly like reflective work, and I feel like that manifested itself in two ways. One is research-wise and one is personal. I feel like one of the things that the course of Dr. Who really challenged was the idea of there being like a research you and a you, as in like you don't bring in your personal circumstances into research. And this summer really challenged that, because when we were dealing with affordable housing, we kind of had to reflect on our own assumptions about affordable housing, and that changed the way that we researched. So that was one side of it. And then the personal side is sort of seeing the way that I could grow as a leader. How could I be a more ethical leader? How do I show up in rooms? How do I speak to people? Things like that.
And I would just only add to that for the Hart Leadership Program writ large, we're not really in the business of expounding one particular model of leadership. We kind of want to shake up the idea that like you can just learn leadership skills and then you are forever after that the world's perfect leader, you have it all figured out. But we're actually about the practice of leadership, like adaptability, flexibility, and also providing spaces and context for you. Like you heard each of these folks, like they're asking themselves questions, like how do I want to show up? So we're trying to provide spaces for each of our scholars, and actually our fellows in any of our programs, to ask those questions and do the same for you. Like, how do I want to show up? How do I want to be authentic to my own values? And some of that begins just with sifting out, like, what is it that you actually care about? And so, yeah, I would just flag, like, authenticity, accessibility, and transparency is, like, for our leadership program writ large, core values. Okay, over here.
Yes, you actually already expanded on one of my questions, which is like what designates like a good Laidlaw scholar just from a youth student. So I'm gonna ask my second, which was also partially expanded upon, but I'm gonna ask it directly. What was the hardest part or like your biggest piece of growth actually being in the program? Like I'm not like, I did this, but like this sucked, but I became better because of it.
That's a tough question.
I guess one of the things is collaboration is hard. At least for me, since I had to deliver something to a specific organization on a time crunch. There were times where I was really at odds with my group, especially when it came to more so like vision, like what's our vision, what's our message, and you learn about conflict resolution in class, but until you're actually in it and you're like struggling through it, you're talking with your teammates, and emotions are coming up, that becomes difficult. But like you said, it sucked. It sucked really bad. But at the end, I feel like it helps a lot with the way that I enter teams now, and like sort of my focus and the role that I try to assume in certain groups. If that makes sense.
I think mine came like probably 4 or 5 weeks into the research, and it was like, okay, we were getting our deliverables together and like the deadlines were ramping up and the intensity of the work was, and I think I felt so overwhelmed and just like I started to dread it to the point where I was like, then I had a realization, it's like I feel engaged in this work, and at one point I felt inspired by this work and like the people that I'm working with and for, and then to like have that be taken out and just be like only focusing, okay, like deliverable this, deliverable that, was I think a tough realization for me, and it kind of sucks because it was like this was something I cared so much about and I felt so deeply inspired by, and now that feels very removed from what I'm doing for like that 4-day period. And I think it was like, how do I get myself out of that? And I think that's something that like when you're involved and you're like going towards a certain change, or it's something that you feel inspired by and want to be a part of, but then that can be removed. It's okay, like how do you go back to that and how do you recenter yourself? And I don't know if I'm like quite there yet in terms of figuring it out, but I feel like I have a stronger base for when something like that happens in the future.
For me, I talked about this with Dr. Ballard during the meeting with her, but I grew up like abroad and then like going back and forth between like abroad and like the States, and so I thought like cultural differences, like I was like very good at like, you know, understanding that people have like cultural differences. When I went to the UK, I feel like one thing I really realized was like it's a very top-down like type relationship with your PI, and it's very different from like Duke. It gave me like a real big like appreciation for my lab here, because I was like, wow, I really have a say here, and like I'm allowed to say that, oh, I think that protocol is actually inefficient, like can we try this out? And my PI will be like, oh, like it's your project, and do whatever you want. Even though I do get like a good amount of guidance, like I feel like there's this mutual trust that like a lot of Duke professors have with their undergrads, which I felt a little less of from like my PI in the UK, which was totally fine. I think I realized that it wasn't like a him thing, but like most other labs at Leeds were like that as well, and I think it's a cultural difference. And so for me, I struggled a lot because I was like, wow, I feel like we could be doing so much more if we were using our time in this way. Or I felt like I wasn't being trusted with like larger parts of the project that I could have been doing, rather than like doing more of like the grunt work, you know, the easy like mixing up the acids type work. But I realized that like I really had to learn to advocate for myself. Like at some point in the middle of the project, I was like, okay, I really need to talk to him, or this is all I'm going to be doing for 6 weeks. So I told him that I feel like the research that I do at Duke, I do this type of work, and I have a lot of big responsibilities, and I feel like just being able to share that a little bit more over my 6 weeks would let me come back home and have a bit more skills that I could apply to the research that I'm doing here, rather than just like being like, oh yeah, I learned how to like do a titration, you know? So I learned a lot, because now I feel like I'm even more comfortable talking to like people who are above me, regardless of where I'm at. And I also like learned to like, oh, when I go into a new area, I should realize that maybe there are cultural differences, and I shouldn't like. I feel like at first when I went, I was like, oh, he's a bad PI. But then I realized it was just like that typical there, and so I've come to like take that blame off of the individual and like learn more about the culture, but also learn like if I need something, I should be able to talk about it.
Okay, we only have a couple of minutes left, so before we take a couple more questions, I can stay around. If any of our panelists can stay around, that's fine, but if you have places to go, don't worry about it. I just wanted to, oh my gosh, I just wanted to flag, I've flagged a lot of stuff, we're doing a lot of flagging today. Our public purpose symposium is taking place tomorrow, so if you would like to get a sense of Hart Leadership Program kind of style of reflection, and also learn a little bit about more of our Laidlaw Scholars' summer experiences, or learn about any of our programs, the Public Purpose Symposium involves a couple of different events. That QR code will take you to the full schedule of events. We're actually having poster sessions in the morning and in the afternoon where you can learn about folks' summer work. And then this panel will be a great opportunity to hear from other students, especially seniors. So most of these students are seniors. So about the like ultimate kind of meaning and value that they've placed in their Hart Leadership Program experience at Duke. So just want to leave that up there so that you'll consider.